Imagine waking up on an ordinary morning. The coffee on the table, the cell phone vibrating with notifications, the routine happening. But suddenly, something changes. The news speaks of disasters in sequence, earthquakes, unexpected wars, strange epidemics. The world seems out of control. You even think, oh, it's just another crisis. But inside you, something screams that it's not normal. Now, close your eyes and imagine the scene, the sky darkening, the moon dull, the stars falling as if they were extinguished sparks. People run, cry, scream, and no one knows what to do. It is at this moment that Jesus' phrase echoes like thunder. When this happens, it will be too late. Scary? Yes, but that's exactly what he said would come. Most unsettlingly, these signs have already begun to line up before our eyes. The stage is being set, and you are part of that generation witnessing the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. It's not a movie, it's not fiction. It's real life, and she's racing against the clock. And here's the invitation. You can't keep this message to yourself. If it has impacted you, share it right now with as many people as possible. We don't know how much time we have, but we do know that hope is certain for those who persevere. So, before continuing, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join this community that is gearing up for the biggest event in history, the return of Jesus. Because when that happens, there will be no second chances. Jesus always spoke clearly about the signs of the end, and one of his strongest warnings was simple and direct. There will come a time when it will be too late. This phrase echoes like an urgent alert, almost like the ringing of an alarm in the silence of the early morning. When he mentioned this, he was not only creating fear, but calling each one to personal responsibility. After all, anyone who has ever missed a train for arriving 1 minute late knows the pain of realizing that the chance has passed. It is interesting to note that Jesus was not speaking of empty metaphors, but of Bible prophecies that would be fulfilled before the eyes of mankind. He knew that life has a fast pace, and that many would leave for later decisions that should be made today. It's like someone who neglects their health, ignoring symptoms until they receive a serious diagnosis. The warning is simple. Time does not wait, and faith cannot be delayed. This message about the return of Jesus also carries a personal tone. Imagine someone investing years in career, possessions, and comfort, but forgetting the essential: preparation for eternity. It's like building a beautiful house, but without a solid foundation. In the first storm, everything falls apart. Therefore, Jesus not only warned, he showed that the priority should be on things that remain, not on what passes. When he said it will be too late, he was calling attention to the need for perseverance in faith. It is not just believing once, but walking daily, firm, even when the routine seems to push to the contrary. This can be practiced in simple attitudes, such as setting aside time each day to read books that strengthen faith. For example, the Gospel of Matthew, or even works such as The Pilgrim's Progress, which illustrate the Christian walk. They are small disciplines that shield the heart, but the warning also connects with the spiritual reality around us. False prophets arise, distractions multiply, and modern life tries to convince that everything can wait. However, Jesus knew that there would be a point of no return. The call is to be awake, vigilant, and attentive, because the next signs would not take long to reveal themselves. Jesus did not leave the future open. He was specific in pointing out 4 signs that would precede his return. These signs are not meant to scare, but to awaken. It's like when a doctor explains the symptoms of a disease before it gets worse. The goal is not to generate panic, but to prevent the worst. In the same way, Bible prophecies become a map that guides us in the midst of chaos. These signs act as beacons in the middle of the night, showing that the story is heading towards a climax. Among them, Jesus highlighted events that would change the world order, mess with nature, and even affect people's own faith. These are milestones that cannot be ignored. Imagine driving on an unfamiliar road and ignoring all the warning signs. The risk of an accident is inevitable. It is important to note that the signs connect with each person's own spiritual journey. When he spoke of the signs of the end, he was saying that there would be no excuse for ignorance because everything would be revealed clearly. Heaven, earth, nations, even Jerusalem would be the scene of these events. The big question is, who will be watching when this begins to be fulfilled before their eyes? These four signs also reveal a profound aspect: God's patience. He could just shut it all down at once, but he prefers to announce it earlier. It's like a teacher who gives tips before the final exam so that no one says they didn't know. In every detail, Jesus is saying, get ready, because big history is about to take a turn. And it is at this point that the conversation deepens. The signs are not just distant prophecies. They are already beginning to manifest, albeit in shadows. Like the pains that precede childbirth, the world already feels contractions. And the first sign that he clearly described was precisely this: global disasters that echo like a cry from creation itself. Jesus compared the initial signs to a woman's labor. He knew that global disasters, wars, famines, earthquakes, and pestilences would not come in isolation, but at an increasing pace as contractions. Each crisis brings pain, but it also reveals that something greater is about to be born. It is creation itself groaning, awaiting the kingdom of God that will be revealed. These events are not new in human history, but the detail is in the intensity and frequency. Think of climate change, recent pandemics, and armed conflicts that spread like wildfire. All of this connects with the Bible prophecies, showing that the planet is not only in natural crisis, but in spiritual upheaval. The whole world seems to be screaming for redemption. The analogy with childbirth is extremely practical. Anyone who has followed this process knows that the pain increases until the final moment. Likewise, wars and earthquakes are signs that are intensifying. It is as if the earth is in labor to give birth to a new era, the day of Jesus' return. This comparison helps us understand that despite the pain, there is hope. And here's an important detail. In the midst of chaos, faith needs to stand firm. The temptation is to look only at the tragedies and despair. But Jesus taught to cultivate perseverance in faith. Practically, this means not letting yourself be dominated by negative news, but balancing your heart with daily Bible reading, prayer, and even small gestures of kindness that illuminate dark environments. These global signals are like trumpets sounding on an increasing scale, reminding us that the end of this era is near. And if the earth groans with labor pains, what will come next promises even more intensity. A scenario in which the church itself will be put to the test before the world. Jesus warned that in the last days, the church would be persecuted and hated by all nations. It was not an exaggeration, but an anticipation of reality. The love of many would grow cold. This persecution would not only be physical, but also cultural and ideological, as we already see today in several places. Hatred against faith does not come out of nowhere. It grows along with resistance against Bible prophecies. But there is a fascinating paradox. The more pressured, the more authentic the church becomes. It is like gold placed in the fire, which loses its impurities and shines even more. Many will abandon the faith, but those who remain will develop a strength that is not won in easy times. Perseverance in faith is born precisely at the moments when it would seem more comfortable to give up. This scenario also reveals the separation between wheat and chaff. In times of peace, everything is mixed, but in persecution, the difference becomes visible. Those who follow only traditions or conveniences drift away, while those who trust in God's kingdom stand firm. It's like pruning a tree, painful but necessary for new fruit to appear. At the same time, false prophets appear, promising easy paths and gospels that do not require renunciation. They speak what pleases the ears, but they turn multitudes away from the truth. Here's a piece of practical advice. Whenever you hear a message that seems too good to be true, Compare it with the Bible. The Word is the criterion for discerning between truth and deception. This crisis, far from being the end of the church, will be the beginning of a spiritual awakening. A community smaller in number but stronger in power will arise with missionary urgency. And in the midst of this scenario, the stage is set for even greater events, where Jerusalem and a central figure will change the course of history. Among all the signs, one of the most impactful involves Jerusalem. Jesus spoke about the so-called abomination of desolation, something that would sound like fiction if it were not so real. The Antichrist will make a covenant of peace, gain the trust of the world, and even allow the rebuilding of the temple. But then he will show his true face, declaring himself as God in the holy place. That will be the point of no return, the milestone that officially opens the Great Tribulation. When that happens, there will be no more room for neutrality. Either you remain faithful to Christ or you surrender to the world system. This turn will be like the moment when a magic trick reveals the illusion. Everyone will realize that they have been deceived, but many will have already fallen into the trap. Today, preparatory signs are already accumulating in Israel. The Temple Institute exists, priests are being trained, and even the objects needed for the sacrifices are ready. It's like seeing the backstage of a show being put together before the big presentation. Bible prophecies do not speak of vague possibilities, but of concrete facts that begin to line up. Politically and spiritually, the scenario also moves. Conflicts in the Middle East, global pressures, and the centrality of Jerusalem in the news are no coincidences. Everything converges to the revelation of a character who will deceive multitudes with promises of peace and quick solutions. Therefore, vigilance is vital, not to believe every discourse that promises to solve the impossible. This sign, loaded with prophetic weight, makes it clear that the world will move towards an unprecedented abyss. And the moment the Antichrist exalts himself in the temple, the earth will see a spiritual watershed. But this will not be the only cosmic sign. The universe itself will react, as if God turned off the stage lights before Christ's triumphal entry. Imagine the sky suddenly plunging in silence, the sun darkening, the moon losing its brightness, and stars falling like sparks on a black mantle. This is exactly how Jesus described this sign, God turning off the lights of the world. It is as if the Creator said, "From now on, all attention must be turned to the return of Jesus." This phenomenon will not only be poetic, but real and terrifying. Think about what happens when power goes out in an entire city. Chaos ensues in minutes. Now multiply that on a global scale. No technology, no human power can prevent it. It is the direct intervention of God, showing that nature also participates in the fulfillment of the biblical prophecies. The scene is grandiose and cinematic. The sky will open like a scroll, revealing that darkness is not the end, but the harbinger of a new light. Jesus will appear as the only source of brightness, contrasting with the total darkness. That moment will be the climax of all human history, where hope will become visible to the eyes of all. But for those who are not prepared, it will be panic. It's like being in a theater and realizing that the curtains have closed, but there's no applause, only the fear of what will come next. Therefore, perseverance in faith must be cultivated now. Reading the Word, keeping your prayer, and not getting carried away by false prophets are essential steps to get through this scenario. This cosmic sign, while impressive, is not the end in itself. He sets the stage for something even greater, the glorious manifestation of the Son of Man. And, in the face of such a revelation, the call to preparation becomes urgent, because time is short and the next step will be decisive. In the face of so many signs, Jesus made it clear that it is not enough just to know the biblical prophecies. You have to be prepared. The call is not to be deceived, not to be dominated by fear, and above all, to keep the flame of faith burning. The Christian life in these times becomes a marathon, where perseverance in faith is the key to reaching the end. preparation does not happen overnight. Just as an athlete trains months before a competition, the heart also needs daily discipline. Praying, studying the Word, and living in community are practices that strengthen against the deception of false prophets. These are habits that, in the midst of the Great Tribulation, will make all the difference. This call is also practical. For example, when anxiety tries to overwhelm, rather than seeking refuge only in distractions, a person can open the book of Psalms and find rest in the promises. When the temptation to give up arises, you can share your struggle with fellow believers who will strengthen your journey. These are simple attitudes that protect from spiritual collapse. Jesus also recalled the urgency of evangelization. If time is short, you can't live as if there were plenty of opportunities. Sharing the message of the kingdom of God is part of that preparation. This can be done with simple conversations at work, with acts of kindness in the neighborhood, or even with the use of the internet as a tool to spread hope. This final call is not an invitation to fear, but to trust. The same Jesus who warned about the signs also promised to be with his own until the end. And this promise sustains every step until the moment when heaven opens and the return of Jesus makes it clear that everything that has been announced has been fulfilled. But there is still something important: how to apply all this in everyday life so as not to live only on theory. Anyone who follows the backstage knows that something impressive is already underway in Jerusalem. The Temple Institute has been working quietly for decades, preparing everything for possible reconstruction. Priests descended from Aaron are being trained, priestly garments have been made, and even the golden lampstand has been produced. It is not an urban legend, it is a documented and visible fact for those who research. These preparations stir not only faith, but also world politics. Israel lives constantly in tension, surrounded by enemies and the target of global attention. And yet, this small territory dictates the course of great powers. Biblical prophecies already highlighted that Jerusalem would be the epicenter of the final events. And there is no denying that the scenario is aligning. It is curious to note that, while many live distracted, people in Israel work as if they were following a prophetic manual. This does not mean that tomorrow we will see the temple ready, but it shows that the gear has already been set in motion. Like someone who sets up a stage before the show, each piece is put in its place, waiting for the final act. This detail also reveals something about the Antichrist. He will not arise in a vacuum. The ground needs to be prepared, both spiritually and politically. And with each news about the Middle East, we realize how alliances, treaties, and tensions move in this direction. It is no exaggeration to say that we live in the backstage phase, where everything is carefully organized. In view of this, Jesus' warning gains strength. The signs are not in the field of imagination, but in the concrete of current history. When all is ready, the curtain will open, and then will come the next sign, a cosmic spectacle in which God himself will turn off the lights of the world. Jesus described a sweeping scene, the sun darkening, the moon losing its brightness, and stars falling as if the sky were in convulsion. It is as if the Creator turned off the lights of creation to announce the entrance of the main character. Imagine for a moment the entire planet plunging into total darkness. No energy, no stars, just cosmic silence. This universal blackout will not only be a natural phenomenon, but a supernatural sign. Just as a theater turns off the lights before opening the curtain, God will announce that something great is about to happen. This moment directly connects the Bible prophecies with the revelation of the Son of Man. The return of Jesus will not be discreet, but visible, impactful, and undeniable. And think about how it will affect hearts. Some will be terrified, unable to cope with the absence of control. Others, however, will see in this scenario the fulfillment of the promise they have been waiting for all their lives. For those who have cultivated perseverance in faith, this scene will not be fear but hope. It will be like finally watching the dawn after a long night. The sky will open like a scroll, revealing the glory that has always been hidden. This poetic language points to a radical rupture of reality. Nothing will be more important than that moment. No wars, no governments, no riches. Everything will lose its value before the only true light, which is Christ shining in majesty. But until that day comes, preparation is essential, because the great risk is not only in facing the darkness, but in being deceived before it. And it is precisely for this reason that Jesus closes his warnings with an urgent call to keep the faith firm until the end. After revealing the signs, Jesus left the most practical instruction: not to be deceived, not to be afraid, and to endure to the end. It sounds simple, but in the midst of the Great Tribulation, this will be the biggest challenge. It's not just about resisting external pressures, but about overcoming internal battles, such as doubt, fatigue, and the temptation to give up. Perseverance in faith needs to be cultivated now, in times of relative tranquility. It's like training before the storm, strengthening the mind and heart. This can be done with simple habits such as daily prayer, studying the scriptures, and even sharing one's faith with those close to you. These small choices create a solid foundation when the pressure increases. But Jesus also spoke of the urgency of evangelization. If time is short, the message needs to be spread. Today, with the internet, anyone can be a prophetic voice in their circle of influence. A video, a conversation at work, a gesture of love in the neighborhood, every attitude can point someone to the kingdom of God. It is not necessary to be a famous preacher. Just be faithful. Christ's call is for his followers to be alert and prepared, even when the world tries to distract them with promises of illusory peace. And here's the point: it's not about living in fear, but with purpose. It's like packing a suitcase, knowing that the flight can be called at any time. Those who are ready do not despair. And so Jesus' words echo as a warning and a consolation. Time is short, but hope is certain. The return of Jesus is the certainty that sustains every step. And the invitation is clear: to remain firm until the end, because history will not end in darkness, but in eternal light. Now that you know the signs and understand the urgency of Jesus' warning, the question is straightforward. What are you going to do with that knowledge? Will you simply watch life go by as if nothing is happening, or will you really take a stand? The decision is personal, but its impact is eternal. Think, if the return of Jesus happened today, would you be ready? Would your family be ready? This is the reflection that separates the distracted from the vigilantes. There is no point in running away from the subject or putting faith on the back burner. Time is not on our side, and the signs of the end are already around us. You may wonder, where do I start? The answer is practical. Start by strengthening your faith daily. Pray, read the Gospels, share hope with those around you. Don't expect perfect conditions, because they will never come. It is in the small daily choices that perseverance in faith is built. And here's a challenge: don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with as many people as you can: family, friends, message groups. If each person who watches impacts one more, the message will multiply like fire in dry straw. You can be the link that will awaken someone before it's too late. So subscribe to the channel now, turn on notifications, and keep following each new content. Together, let's decipher Bible prophecies, unmask false prophets, and prepare to live steadfastly to the end. The choice is yours, and the clock is ticking.